one of the things that made him pop off the most was he got an advertiser to offer him $5,000. And MrBeast came back and said, actually, give me $10,000 and I'll go give it to a homeless person. And they said, Jimmy, you're not going to do that. He's like, nope, I promise you I'm going to do it. It's going to be huge. And they did.
So they're probably like, well, wait a second. You're just going to give away our $10,000?
Oh, yeah. And his mom was like, no, Jimmy, give away 8 and keep 2. Even his buddies thought it was crazy.
Welcome to the Chasing Mountains podcast. I'm Dave Rumer. This is Jacob Colgan. How you doing?
I'm good, buddy.
Who are we talking about today?
MrBeast.
MrBeast. I am super excited. I know that you are.
Me too.
Why don't you, if you could, give us a little background, give us a little story time. Tell us about who MrBeast is and where he came from.
I'm almost 40 years old and I'm inspired by a 24-year-old. And it didn't start off with him being, first off, for most people, he is one of the top YouTubers in the entire world. Between all of his channels, I believe he has 3 or 4. He has almost 200 million subscribers. And on his main channel, he has 95 million subscribers. This is not a small YouTuber. No. Now, for some people, they may not know who he is, but he does a lot of entertaining videos. But we'll go back to the beginning. Jimmy actually was diagnosed with...
And it's Jimmy Donaldson, right?
Jimmy
That's
Donaldson.
His actual...
Yeah.
His mother gave him a real name.
Not MrBeast.
Yeah.
That'd be a wonderful child's name.
That'd be a terrible child's name. I think we'll name him
MrBeast.
MrBeast.
But he was actually diagnosed with Crohn's disease at a young age, which caused him to miss a lot of things. He loved baseball at a young age, and he couldn't play that. He was always sick. Though he loved baseball, he didn't feel good, and so he was forced to be indoors a lot. And he just loved playing video games. And then he saw some YouTubers on YouTube. Back when YouTube was a young company, and he decided, I'm going to start uploading some videos to YouTube. Long story short, he uploaded hundreds of videos without really any success. And through that entire process, he was obsessed with figuring out how to make good content. And in the beginning, he didn't know how. He filmed it on an iPhone. When he could afford a microphone, he'd get a microphone. And I think his fans really appreciated that because most of the comments were, video looks fine, but the audio is trash. And in the beginning, his mother didn't even know he had a YouTube channel. I think he had like 10,000 subscribers before she even knew. I think what I take from him a lot is just like he has a lot of like stick-to-itness. That's not really a word, but
works really hard. Yeah.
Doesn't give up.
Yeah.
I mean, most people, he's being made fun of by his friends. He has nobody really to talk to because what's a YouTuber back then? No one cared. Now it's a thing. Everybody wants to be an influencer. But throughout the years of him just being dedicated and being obsessed with the algorithm, every day that's all he thought about. He'd start live streams with his friends and they just talk YouTube. Started doing a few things that kind of made him pop off a little bit. And like for something, he'd take a plastic knife and he would cut through a plastic table and just film it. See how long it would take. It took him like 30 hours. He'd count to 100,000. And at the beginning, it was mostly just spectacle. But now he's putting on full productions, big videos that cost millions of dollars. And one of the things that made him pop off the most was he got an advertiser to offer him $5,000. And he said, we want to sponsor this video. We'll give you $5,000. And MrBeast came back and said, actually, give me $10,000 and I'll go give it to a homeless person. And they said, Jimmy, you're not going to do that. He's like, nope, I promise you I'm going to do it. It's going to blow up. It's going to be huge. And they did.
They're probably like, well, wait a second. You're just going to give away our $10,000?
Oh, yeah. And his mom was like, no, Jimmy, keep like 8,000 or give away 8 and keep 2. Even his buddies thought it was crazy. But he did. He went outside and asked his buddy to come film. And his buddy didn't really even know what was going on. He went up to the first homeless person that he saw and went up to him and said, I want to give you some money. And he said, here you go. And there's a big envelope. And he looked in and was like, what? You're kidding me, right? And he goes, nope, there's $10,000 in there. You can have it. And the guy, of course, broke down. And that was the video when it just blew up.
Yeah. So that kind of set the tone then for much of his content that he would go on to create and what he creates now, right? It's based around giving away money or people earning or winning money, right?
Right. I mean, it's like we mentioned this before the podcast, but it's like almost like a game show. It's the last to remove their hand from this Lamborghini gets it. And people will wait there for 40, 50 hours to get this thing. Or the last to leave the island gets it. Or if you're the winner of hide and seek, you get $1 million. It's It's a crazy game show.
It's sort of like tried and true things like, like a Survivor or Jeopardy or Fear Factor. It's like, do this thing and you can earn this money. And sometimes it's for, MrBeast on his channel, it's like ridiculous money.
Oh yeah. Well, MrBeast went from doing a lot of things where he had a video where he watched paint dry. Mm-hmm. And it was like a 40-hour video or whatever it was. And obviously probably cut it down. I don't know if there was a whole thing. Or he said the words PewDiePie, 100,000 times or 10,000 times. Those were like just spectacles. People were like showing up to just, wait, is this kid really watching paint dry? But now it moved to where he was understanding the algorithm. He was understanding what people wanted to watch. And it's grown into a massive channel. And you talk about story time. I guess I don't even know where to stop the story time. It's still going on. He's 24 years old.
Yeah.
Even to one point in time, he was celebrating his 20 millionth, which he's past that.
20 millionth subscriber.
20 millionth subscriber. And they raised...
I assumed you didn't mean 20 millionth birthday.
Oh, maybe. No, 20 millionth subscriber. And they raised $20 million. And they made a deal with the Arbor Foundation, I believe it's what it's called, if they can plant a tree for $1. And they said they could do it. So they raised $20 million. And I believe it's up to 13 million trees that they planted across the world. And they did that.
Are they still planting?
They are.
It's still like a ongoing thing, right?
It'll be for a while. I mean, how do you plant 20 million trees?
Yeah.
I mean, they were thinking of like, can we make robots? Can we have our fans do it? Like, what do we do? And one of the things that why we're even talking about him, obviously we talk more about business or people chasing that mountain, trying to figure out the next goal. Jimmy's been doing that from the get-go. I mean, he started with 0 subscribers. I mean, his mother didn't even know he had a YouTube channel really, or even a success until one day he shows up at his mom's house with enough money to pay off her mortgage. And he didn't come from a rich family. It's a single mother taking care of him. And so, yeah.
Well, and she thought he was going to college too for like a whole semester.
Tell me about that.
He talks about where he would drive to the college campus, community college in his area. She thought he was going to class because if his options were to either go to class, go to college, or to move out, and he couldn't afford to move out. So he elected to go to class, but he didn't actually go. He would drive there, sit on campus in the parking lot and work on his videos. He would just edit on his phone. And so he obviously had to find success like by the end of the semester. And he did. He ended up making enough money, made like, I think it was a big brand deal or whatever, so he could actually move out. But
well, I'd read that he hated school, hated everything about it, and was like, I do not want to go to college. I don't want to work at a cubicle. This is not what I want to do. All I want to do is YouTube. And he always says that he was obsessed. When everybody else wanted to go hang out, do whatever, all he wanted to do was talk about YouTube, how to figure out the YouTube algorithm. And everybody talks about the YouTube algorithm, but I think the kids figured it out. I mean, you're talking about videos that it's getting 200 million views in like a week. Mm-hmm. He's had billions of views on his channel. It's impressive.
Why do you think that he's had this success? I mean, like, can we talk a little bit about like the content itself?
Yeah.
Like what he's creating? Because, me personally, I've heard him say he wants to create the greatest and best videos, like period. That's what he wants to do. The greatest and best YouTube videos. From where I sit, like I've seen videos that have a lot more substance. They're, visually more appealing, really beautiful, really interesting. But I think he defines greatest and best by one that aligns with the algorithm most effectively on YouTube. That's kind of my theory. Is it seems like, when he says that, that's actually everything he puts out. First and foremost, it's got to perform according to the YouTube algorithm. Do you agree with that?
I do.
You feel like that's a big part of?
I've seen where he's talked about he's filmed entire videos and they just didn't work, so they never released them. And they may have spent $100,000 doing it. Mm-hmm. I think he's obsessed with making it to where I think he knows his audience. His audience is a younger group of people, but me being almost 40 years old, I've watched it with my nephews and been like, that was actually really interesting. But he understands the hook. He understands it's a pace. He understands that we need to keep things going. With our attention spans these days, he knows if I'm going to have a 15-minute video, it's got to be entertaining. There's got to be several subplots with the main plot. His definition of the best video isn't maybe mine. I come from a film background and we think about oh, that's $100,000 lens. It's going to be beautiful. And his thought is like, well, can we do it with an iPhone and will I have the same views?
Yeah.
And I think maybe he has his priorities straight knowing his medium.
Yeah. I think that's a great observation. He knows what people are coming back for. You know, he knows what people want to see on his channel, why they're there. And it's not there for great cinematic shots.
Right. But I mean, even when he does want to do something cinematic, he hires the right people, and you'll have average looking footage. The next thing you know, it's just like a beautiful shot. And you're like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it.
So he slips it in there.
He does. And in his videos, he's always taking the money and reinvesting it into the next one. And that's why I think you're seeing just amazing things. I mean, he's given away $1 million in some of these videos. He's had one where he gave someone, I believe, $10,000 for every day they stayed in this insane asylum type room, a big white room. And every single day they'd come in and take one thing, one comfort away. Like there'd be pictures on his wall of the family, a guitar, a this, a that. And every day they'd come take one more thing. Next thing you know, there's no furniture in the room, but people stay. It's fun. It's a competition. I think we put ourselves in that place and we think, what would I do? I mean, I've even thought myself, I was like, that'd be fun to be on one of those videos. Maybe my nephews will actually think I'm cool. You know, of all the things I've done in my life, if I got to be on a video, they might actually think I'm cool. Who knows? Probably not still.
It's a high bar, you know?
I mean, what do you think's next? I mean, people have said he's possibly going to be the first YouTube billionaire.
A huge part of what he does is, you know, in his content is like throw money out the door. And thankfully, he's not just throwing out the door or just lighting it on fire. Like he's giving it to people, which is wonderful. And that makes for great content. Like people just love that. But, you know, I think in order to continue to grow, and I think this will happen naturally as he like matures as a business person, matures as a content creator. And I mean that with all due respect. I mean, he's like the guy clearly knows what he's doing, but,
he does.
But I think that like budget wise, when he goes to create, you know, the next video and the next video and the next video, when he knows that a gigantic portion of that budget is going to be spent on just giving money away and sending it out the door, I think that that's something that maybe his content will have to sort of start tightening that up a little bit and have content that doesn't revolve around that as like kind of the main substance.
Well, on that point, when we talked about this a little bit earlier, but he has his other YouTube channels to feed the main channel. He has a channel specifically where he reacts to things, him and his buddies. His buddy Chris is really funny. MrBeast is just awkward in himself, which is wonderful because people can relate. You know, I'm awkward, you know, and not everybody can be a social butterfly like you, but MrBeast is a little more awkward. His friend Chris is hilarious. He can make a sandwich falling on the floor be really just funny. And so what they do is they react. They'll see something funny, a meme, a funny video on TikTok, and they'll do games like if you laugh, you lose, and they'll have lives. Every time that you laugh, you lose. Or they'll bring in their grandma, sit the grandma down. We're going to give your grandma $20,000, but every time you laugh, we'll take away $5. And so it's funny and they make it a challenge. So these channels, they're not giving money away.
Yeah.
It's just, and they might get 10 million views on it. So it's interesting what they're doing with the sub channels.
Well, and you're somebody who's had, you know, has multiple businesses kind of all at once. Like, sometimes it seems that is a really effective way to operate, is to kind of have your primary, but then to have some of these, you know, some of these others that are maybe related, like in his case with MrBeast, like they're still YouTube channels, but you know, they're helping to sort of feed the main moneymaker, right?
Yeah. And then one of the things he said is like, look, if we're losing money, just the next video, we won't give away as much, you know? And if they know it's still going to get 10 million views, they can calculate what they can actually make back. It's impressive. And the man gives away so much money in other ways. He owns a massive food bank that goes into small communities that normally wouldn't have a food bank, because most of the time it's bigger cities that, you know, accumulate that stuff. But he wanted to go and help, you know, a lot of people. Some of his videos are going in, he buys up an entire lot of cars and then puts out huge sale. And then people that come in, they're giving the cars away. They'll look at someone and be like, it says 30. Yep. $30. And they're like, $30? They're like, oh, it's too much. $5. They're like, what are you talking about? They're like, fine. We'll give you $20 if you'll take the car. And of course they break down. They're like, actually, we're giving away cars today.
Is he actually the salesperson in that?
Him and his buddies.
Okay.
And they're funny and they give them away. Yeah. And these aren't people that just, you know, could easily afford a car. They're people who need it. And they go into the communities. And I think he got that itch for giving. And there's nothing quite like giving when you can afford to give.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge, huge part of what he's based his business around, which is actually really cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a really great thing.
Obviously, he's in the middle of his career or even the beginning of his career. And I think it's only going to go up.
Yeah.
YouTube is growing every single day. And I think, I don't know. What do you think? Where's it going?
Well, I've heard him talk about how much faith he has in YouTube as a platform.
Yes.
He has loved it from the very beginning and talks about how he just had this sort of undying passion and would work these 18-hour days, creating videos and working on videos and changing things and filming them and editing and all these things.
With no guarantee of success.
Yeah. It really had to come, especially early on, from a place of just pure passion. And being an early adopter. I mean, he was clearly an early adopter of YouTube and just loved it from day one. Before he even knew, it was what really lit the fire for him, I think, is when he realized that, oh, wait a second, like that YouTuber just made $300,000 on YouTube. I can do that. And he believed it and set out and did. But I think he still, if you listen to him, he still at least appears to have the same fire, the same passion for YouTube. I mean, it's kind of brought him everything that he could want. And he gets to create fun content with his friends who also happen to work for him. And we've done that, by the way, which has been great. That is a really fun, special thing that you can do when you can work with people that are your friends and family and do things that you all care about. And I mean, that's really special. So I think, what's next for him is going to be, finding ways to continue to diversify, where it makes sense, because I've heard him talk about how a lot of YouTube channels, they suffer because they start getting distracted. They branch out from all these from what was a primary YouTube income and start, a clothing line, or they start, manufacturing this or that. And good on them for that. I mean, that's for some people, I would say a lot of people probably don't want to necessarily do what MrBeast does. But he very much wants to do. MrBeast wants to do what MrBeast wants to do. He's doing that. And so, for him, he wants to focus, I think, and continue to create, these videos that perform really well.
But that's what he does well. When he does see an opportunity like Beast Burgers or the chocolate factory thing he's doing right now.
Yeah. And he's branching out. Yeah.
But he's branching out in a good way. He sets up the business to run for itself, basically tells them, keep the money, reinvest the money, just touch base with me. He's not in it every single day, taking care of everything every single day. Right. He knows what he needs to do is focus on his channel.
And you can't be, if you're going to scale, like you can't, he's not even necessarily every single day on his main channel, like deeply in the content, because he's talked about, they may have 3 big videos going on all at once, which is why we should talk about his like new facility.
Sure. I mean, MrBeast and them spent, I think, well over $10 million on their new facility. And it's in South Carolina, is it?
I think it's North Carolina. Yeah.
And he decided early on not to go to LA where everybody else was going. He thought, I could spend $10 million here and get, was it 100 plus acres in this massive facility? Or I could spend $10 million in LA and get a shack, basically. And that's not far from the truth. So I think he's smart enough to know that, first off, taxes are cheaper here than here. I get to be near my family. I get to give jobs to people who actually need it. And for gosh sakes, he gave one of his more popular people on his YouTube channel, I believe it's called Chandler, and he was their janitor. He thought he was funny, brought him in on a few videos. Fans loved him. I think he's smart enough to know what he does best, and he does it. And he has the editors. He has everybody do the things that he doesn't have to do. And most YouTubers think, I'm the one who has to do the editing. No one can edit like me. And he's even known for saying, no, you're wrong. Just get someone to edit like you. Probably they're even going to be better. And I think that's how he's scaling.
There's a lot of leaders, though, in business that suffer because they can't give up direct control.
Dude, I struggle with that.
I think like we all do at one point or another. If you are in a position to where you can and should be delegating tasks, most of the time, until you really get used to that and really get in the flow and you can prove to yourself like that it works, most people really struggle. And most people that struggle with it, they hamstring themselves. Like they shoot themselves in the foot because, they could be growing. And thankfully for MrBeast, I mean, he's recognized the need to do this in order to scale. I mean, if he's going to continue to create the content with at the scale that he has been, with the frequency that he has been, he's got to have, I mean, he's got like 100 employees.
Yeah, something like that. Probably more now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about a small channel. They're tens of millions of dollars, maybe a quarter. I mean, the amount of money they're making, the amount of billions of views they have is incredible. And we're not talking about like half-assed views. We're talking about great retention, great advertisement ad revenue. Very impressive.
There's some interesting implications too, as we sort of come out of this like COVID economy into this changed way of working for a lot of people, where I think many have effectively proven that they can work very efficiently and successfully remotely or from home. This idea that you have to go into the office, or that your office needs to exist in a certain geographic location in order to be successful. I think there's a lot of people questioning that now. And so it's interesting, to see that, like Jimmy, when he set up his business, he did it in his hometown where he grew up. Like you said, he bought this facility in his hometown where they could all work. And in doing so, his expenses were way lower. Things like property taxes and
state
just
income
living expenses, state income taxes. I mean, his 100 employees, he theoretically doesn't have to pay as much as he would have to if he were doing this in New York or LA or whatever, because their living expenses are less. And so they can all be more comfortable for less. But, there's some interesting takeaways there, I think, for individuals who, or business owners as well, because I know that you've talked many times about the temptation to maybe move your company to different locations because that's where it's happening, or that's where the industry
almost moved to
is.
Nashville.
Yeah. But I think even in our own experience, we realized that like, maybe that's not as necessary as it once seemed to be. Like if you wanted to be in film, it used to be you'd go to Hollywood. If you wanted to, be in country music, you had to go to Nashville. Yeah. So like, I don't know. What do you think about all that?
I think with him being so young and growing up with the internet, he has a perspective that we don't. We've seen the world, what it was like before the internet. He grew up on the internet. That's partially why I even like, the Beast Burgers, there's no locations. He has no employees, no overhead. He splits a rate with people. When they order MrBeast Burgers, it's someone like Red Robin making it. He has a very specific like way of making it, and they do it, and he makes money off of that. And it's amazing how he came up with that idea. No, he's not the first, but he's smart enough to know, hey, we should capitalize on this massive amount of people that subscribe to us. I would say my key takeaway from this is a lot of times we can get down on ourselves and say, here's why I can't do this. Here's my obstacle. I'm this, I'm that. Jimmy, he had Crohn's disease. That is a very uncomfortable, painful, ailment.
And it's really disruptive. Like I know people that have it where, it's tough because you never kind of know how your day's going to go, how your week's going to go. You could have all these plans, but like, boom, you have a flare up and
then it basically you're out.
Yeah.
So, and Jimmy has that. And yet he was obsessed with making YouTube before even people really it was a thing. So for my takeaway is just like, stick to it, and adjust as you go. Don't keep doing the same thing. Look at what you're doing and saying what's working, what's not working, and let's adjust. And we always have excuses of why we can't do something. And I think if it's something that you're passionate about and obsessed with, just do it. If you have something that's in the way, just look at it as part of your journey and just keep going. I'm sure there are times when Jimmy has to go home and just pass out and fall asleep. But the reality is the amount of work he's doing is inspiring to me. And I have no natural ailment like that. What's my excuse? I have all the gear in the world for filming. I have all the audio gear. I have the talent and friends who could help with it. It's like, what's my takeaway is like, what's your excuse, Jacob, for not achieving all the things you say you want to do?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Kind of lights a fire under my butt. I've got years of experience doing this, and it's inspiring. That's my takeaway, honestly.
Yeah. And I feel my takeaway, it kind of is, touches on that a little bit, which is like, you talk about all your experience that you have to make great content, but I think he recognizes, like, at the end of the day, what is my goal? And for Jimmy, I think, he'll say greatest and best videos, but I really think for him, it's the performance analytics. Like that is what he cares about, is to create videos that will perform and that will have high retention and will get subscribers and get views. And so if everything that he does is kind of around that one central goal, it all seems to sort of fall into place. Like he doesn't, as we've talked about, doesn't really worry too much about how does it look. He doesn't get lost in that. He doesn't spend too much time and energy and money making great looking content, or content that sort of has continuity from beginning to end. In fact, he talks about how he really intentionally sort of disrupts the flow to keep people's attention, to change things partway through.
He knows his audience.
Yeah, knows his audience. So I think just that he not only is super passionate about YouTube and about creating content, but his passion also, I would say, just to drill down even further, just revolves around the performance of that content. Because he could stop with just like, man, I just love making videos and just throwing things out on YouTube. There are people that do that who have,
I'm one of them.
Well, sure. But
we've done that where it's like, why isn't it doing well? It's like, well, I didn't do any research to see if anybody wanted this video.
Yeah. And you didn't build it around performance. We've talked about that on this podcast. Like, we want to create really great, engaging content that people enjoy and want to consume, but you do have to be intentional about that. You can't just like throw stuff out there and like, here's some stuff, I hope you like it. So being hyper focused on like, what do we want to get across? What do people actually want to receive and consume, and build everything around there.
I mean, for a 24-year-old man, he's doing really well.
He's doing awesome.
What a powerful thing he has is that many subscribers. Almost 200 million subscribers between all of his channels. And I'm sure it's a lot of the same repeat, but the power for advertisement, for when he needs to sell something, raise money, whatever he needs to do. I mean, the kid does more for helping people out than most charities do. So very impressive kid. I'm excited to see what he does with his future.
Yeah. For somebody in their early 20s who is wildly successful and has that level of influence, it's maybe more impressive than anything else that like, he still seems like a pretty normal, humble guy who like, he gives away a ton of money, but there's a lot worse things he could be doing. I mean, it wouldn't take long to list, to create a long list of successful young people who are doing stupid things with their money, not doing the best work that they could, in just what they communicate, what they advocate for. So like, huge props to him for that, at that early of an age, having that amount of money, that amount of success. And like, what does he do more than anything else on screen, but just like give money away? Right. Like, that's pretty cool.
It is. And to kind of like wrap it up, one thing that he said, he had a moment of when he started to ball out. It's like, I've got this money. I guess I'm supposed to go spend $1,000 on a shirt. Yeah. I guess I'm supposed to buy this watch. And he had it stolen from him. Someone broke into his house and stole all of that. And he says, well, I guess that's a sign that I didn't need it. And it's interesting how he's been able to stay humble to his roots. He stayed in his hometown. He's given jobs to people around him. And like you said, props to the dude. And there's so much we missed, I'm sure, but
it's exciting as like having a YouTube channel and being YouTubers. Can we call ourselves YouTubers yet?
Oh God, no. We need to hit 10,000 before.
Aspiring YouTubers, but it's fun to sort of look at, what others have done, especially kind of top of the stack in terms of success. Like, it's cool to see just what they've done in their journey, how they've got there, what they care about. So
last nugget. Do you know where he got his name?
Xbox.
So
he was MrBeast 6000.
It was a randomly generated name. It was just
randomly generated, and he he used it for a long time, and then I think as his YouTube picked up, he was like, "Hey, that works. That's pretty cool." Yeah,
there was even a song out called MrBeast 6000. It was wonderfully awful, and I loved it. It was at the end of every video. And
who's it? Like, just by somebody random?
I think one of his buddies made it. Oh. Maybe we'll end the show with it. Who knows?
Nice.
But anyways, impressive kid. I mean, that's what we do. We look at people who are chasing that next mountain, trying to achieve goals that other people have said is impossible. Cool kid. One day I'd love to tour his studio and just check it out and see what they do, even as far as like the ingest of all that footage, what they do with it. It's got to be a massive server.
Yeah.
So Anyways, that's a little story about MrBeast and one of the biggest YouTube channels out there.
Yeah. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. We are trying to be in competition with MrBeast, building our subscriber base,
we're trying
our views. So
we
like
started
and subscribe.
from the bottom.
Yeah. Well, we're still pretty close to that. But we really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for taking the time. Comment below if you have any thoughts, feedback, whatever. We'd love to hear it as we continue to grow. So
we're Chasing Mountains podcast. We're out.
Later.
The thoughts and opinions on this show do not reflect those of our advertisers, employers, or other affiliates. The content should not be considered legal or financial advice. The Chasing Mountains podcast is a production of Chasing Mountains Media. Copyright 2022.